Shalom and welcome to TBN Israel, the podcast. And today we're going to talk about the situation in the Gaza Strip. Is Hamas losing power? Is the international media and the world listening to all the lies that Hamas is spreading? And with me to discuss this is the one and only Mati Shoshani.
Welcome back, Yair.
And I think that by the way that I started saying that, you kind of think that I'm on the truth side of things and not on the Hamas side of things. It kind of bugs me a lot that the world is taking the word of a terrorist organization instead of believing the only democratic country in the Middle East. And this is an organization that has lied, cheated, murdered, and still holds hostages in the Gaza Strip. But yeah, why not? Let's believe them and not believe Israel in the situation
Not
here.
only that, and I'm happy you're opening with this. So I'll say this for the sake of our audience. If you've been living under a rock for the last
608 days, I think, yeah.
But even before that, on every single turn, Hamas lies. With every opportunity, Hamas lies. The last, let's say, week or so, every headline on a global level that has come out of the Gaza Strip has been not a twist of the truth, it's been deceitful, consistently. And in other words, we'll go into this in detail. The IDF, to remind everyone, is on this very, very in-depth operation in the Gaza Strip. And the purpose of it is to eliminate Hamas's control over the Gaza Strip and at the same time, make sure aid gets to the people of Gaza. And we were there the day the operation opened, saw the Air Force...
bombings.
Yeah, bombings right behind us as it happened. This morning, as I was walking the dog early in the morning, I could hear the thuds coming from the Gaza Strip. Very, very substantial operation. But at the same time, very substantial humanitarian aid operation taking place at the same time. And behind that, while the IDF is fighting to do this, together, by the way, with the aid of the U.S., the international community, the UN, the Arab countries, Hamas, and the global, let's call it...
mainstream media reports.
Anti-Israel news have been preventing aid from reaching the Palestinians actively, have been actively lying about what's been happening in the Gaza Strip. And maybe, again, I think we both came like super loaded emotionally.
Yeah, listen, I've been so upset about this. It's like, it reminds me from the early days of this war when the international media was turning against Israel just days after Hamas launched its terrorist attacks against our southern communities.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So it's exactly the same, and we see this pattern repeating itself, that the enemy is using lies and deceit, and sadly the international media and the world are buying into it. Okay, so let's break down what's happening at this moment. The IDF is in the middle of Operation Gideon's Chariots in the Gaza Strip and is intensifying its strikes on Hamas targets, on Hamas infrastructure, on Hamas tunnels, on Hamas weapons storage facilities, and above all, on Hamas key leaders. So the IDF has destroyed and officially terminated the high leadership within the Gaza Strip of Hamas, including
once again,
whoever rose to that level.
It's happened multiple times, and we've eliminated throughout this war everyone who was number 1, 2, 3 in Hamas, and many of the battalion and regiment commanders for the Hamas. And now the latest iteration was, what was it, like a week ago? Early this week. Final confirmation on the brother of the late Sinwar.
Sinwar was the former leader and the orchestrator of the October 7 attack, and then his brother took control of this organization, Muhammad Sinwar, and he was struck and terminated officially in a tunnel, of course, in the area underneath civilian people and
underneath the hospital.
Underneath the hospital,
yeah.
Exactly. So,
which again, the actual, like, being able to say that in one line.
Yeah.
The head of Hamas was hiding underneath a hospital full of wounded people. And then the global media says, Israel strikes hospital. That is the press.
That's the headline.
That's the headline that comes out. And we're living in this world. I think this is important to note. I feel like the news coming out of Israel is becoming more and more politicized to the point where it's almost detached from what's actually happening on the ground. It's become an extreme situation where the facts just don't line up with the reporting on them. In the past, I think it sort of ebbs and it flows. Yeah. Every once in a while, like the reporting will come closer to reality, and then every once in a while it'll depart from it dramatically. We're there now, where again it's been we've been on this on multiple different projects in the last 3-4 days. Everywhere you look, there's misinformation, and the misinformation is not by 10%. It is 100% false and 100% covering up what's really happening on the ground.
And the sad part is that these, official big news agency that supposedly have the journalistic standards to report the truth are buying into these Hamas lies and publicize them just to get the headlines. So they get the headlines, of course, wrong and lies about Israel attacking civilians, and millions of people see only these headlines, and then after that, a few days later, after the IDF shows proof of what really happened, these media outlets say, oh, yeah, you're right. This is not the standard that I hold myself.
We didn't accurately report.
Yes.
And this is...
But who's seen this? Nobody. This is on page 5 of the website or the last page of the newspaper.
Yeah.
So the damage is done.
I think we need to do two things. One, we need to tell the story of what's really happening in the Gaza Strip. Two, just to explain this, since you already gave the example. What people don't understand about how media bias works is the fact that you inaccurately report things, it creates a false reality. It's not a skewed reality. It's not like most of the information is correct.
It's just completely incorrect.
And the edges of it are incorrect. The entirety of the message is incorrect because you've chosen to omit the main portion of the information. I'll give you an example. The report that was coming out around the world the last couple of days throughout the holiday weekend or holiday midweek, I guess holiday we had, Shavuot, Pentecost, was that the IDF killed 30 civilians outside of one of the food distribution centers inside the Gaza Strip. And that was a report that came out. IDF shoots and kills 30 people. BBC led with that headline. Washington Post led with that headline.
It's a good catchy headline.
Global
what can
news.
I say?
It's easy to say that tens, if not over 100 million people around the world observed these headlines and absorbed that information and chose that as their reality.
And that's it.
Multiple days later, that's stuck. That ends, that's at, let's say, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then that ends, and multiple days after this headline dominates the news cycle, a clarification comes out. And the Washington Post, I did a reel on this the other day, explaining this on Instagram. The Washington Post says they retract their statements, and they say, this is their words, this is how they whitewash their false reporting. The level of reporting wasn't to the level that we would expect our reporting to be, which is what they did is they quoted a compulsive liar, the Hamas Health Organization, that has never told the truth throughout this entirety of the war. In the past, they sometimes were accurate, but definitely in this last 18 months period, they lie consistently. So they quote them, knowing full well that they're lying, knowing full well that Hamas was the one shooting the actual people, knowing full well that the reporters on the ground for these different organizations are themselves ideologically aligned with Hamas. Not all of them, but many of them. It's a very weird situation. They do this, it runs the news cycle day after day after day after day. Millions of people read this, and then they put out a clarification. We're sorry, it wasn't accurate. The inaccurate part of it was that it didn't happen. That was the inaccurate part of it.
It's a complete lies. It's not inaccuracy.
But wait, there is truth to it. There were people killed.
Just not by the IDF.
But not by the IDF.
Exactly.
That's a huge distinction. And it's like saying IDF attacks Gaza, Palestinians killed, but you missed the part where it wasn't the IDF who killed the Palestinians.
Exactly.
It was Hamas who was shooting the people. And then, so what happens here? You have a news cycle. Everyone gets that opinion. They absorb that information. After the story is done and everyone's moved on to the next thing, you say, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't fully accurate. I'll try not to do that again, and then you do it again. So that's not a bias. That's called deceit. That's a word that needs to be used. So let's set the record straight on what's actually going on in the Gaza Strip.
1 second before that, guys, if this is your first time, please hit the subscribe button of TBN Israel. It really helps us reach more people with what's happening in Israel so that you will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. As we've seen, and we keep seeing, this is a spiritual war, and the enemy is using lies and deceit to trick people and to change the narrative of what really is happening. So that's what we are fighting here, and that's what we are doing here at TBN Israel. So be part and hit that subscribe button. Thanks. Keep going, Mati.
Thank you.
No, he has no connection to thoughts. I don't know how to say that.
What do you mean?
I cut your...
My line of thought?
Yes.
No, I'm still there. So what I was saying is let's set the record straight of what's actually happening in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this conversation, again, it's become this very politicized conversation where, in fact, there is a reality of what's taking place. And there's a reason of what we're doing in the Gaza Strip. So let's start. Just recently, a big operation called Gideon's Chariots took place in the Gaza Strip. There are 5 battle groups, or what we call divisions, traveling through the Gaza Strip. That's a battle group that combines tanks and infantry and artillery and special forces and engineering corps, etc., etc., all of them fighting in different groups. And what they're doing is they're fighting the last, hopefully, strongholds of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and then aid in a substantial sense.
Exactly. So what the IDF is doing now is targeting the last strongholds of Hamas, which currently, surprise, surprise, are located within the most densely populated areas of Gaza City, of other refugee camps in the Gaza Strip. Basically, where the population are, Hamas is using them as human shields. It's a win-win situation for them. If a civilian is killed by Hamas, Israel is to blame. If a civilian is killed by the IDF, Israel is to blame. So it's like you can't win the situation, especially if the world believes the word of a terrorist organization, Hamas. Okay, so militarily speaking, the IDF decided that the best way to destroy Hamas, which is not only a terrorist organization, it's also the governing body in the Gaza Strip. It was in charge of providing the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. It was in charge of the health care of the Palestinian people. And after the IDF understood that if we want to destroy Hamas, we need to destroy their grip over the Palestinian population. So how we do that? We stop giving them fuel, food, aid truck, humanitarian aid, which the IDF did through Israel since this war began on a daily basis. Hundreds and hundreds of trucks, and Mati saw it firsthand, that went into the Gaza Strip, and immediately after leaving the areas of the IDF, they were overrun, and all the food was looted and stolen by Hamas and kept in warehouses in the Gaza Strip, and then sold to the Palestinian people at inflated costs. So that was the situation. So the IDF decided, okay, we stop feeding Hamas and giving them money. And then, of course, the international community, you are starving the Gazan people, you're destroying the war, instead of blaming Hamas, which is the leader of these people. And then what the IDF is doing now is creating these distribution centers.
Humanitarian zones, we're calling them.
Yeah, humanitarian zones within the Gaza Strip, from within the United States civilian company, an organization that is in charge of providing and giving the food to the Gazan people, needs to operate under the IDF's protection.
Yes.
And that's what we have been doing so far. It has been successful in giving thousands of Gazan Palestinians food for their whole families. They come in, they show an ID, prove that they're not Hamas terrorists, and they leave this area.
It was more than thousands, It was
hundreds of thousands.
It was, I'm trying to think of the number, was within a week of operation, it was several million units of food, which were supposed to be, I think, good enough for almost 1 million people.
So
a substantial amount of people.
Basically, every box that each family gets is enough food for around 6 people for 7 days.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a lot of food that each Palestinian receives, and you can see
some of it was looted.
Yes,
some of it was looted. But what's important is people need to Google this, and I'm saying this to the people at home. Look up the images of look up humanitarian distribution Gaza Strip. Look at what the images look like. The IDF, and this isn't Israel alone, by the way, the U.S. has done this alongside us, spent a substantial amount of money building out essentially a system to allow people to come in without being robbed by Hamas on the way in or out, and by making sure that they're able to, in their hand, receive a package of aid. Some families have said, well, they can abuse the system, they can take more than one package. And the IDF in Israel and the U.S. said to them, God bless you all, just take 2 packages. Exactly. As long as we make sure that the people actually get food in their hands. So it's a very substantial, very concentrated effort to prevent Hamas from taking over the goods. And the only way we were able to do that is create these pockets of humanitarian zones within the Gaza Strip that are not, by the way, controlled by the IDF. They're controlled by several aid organizations based in the U.S., along with several U.S. consulting companies, which is honestly a development that's been happening the last couple of days, where companies are coming and going because of the...
Because it's hard.
Because it's so politically volatile to deal with this. And at the same time, there's these aid workers are giving out under the protection of the IDF and other organizations, giving out the food to the people. All of this is in a concentrated effort to detach the people of Gaza from the control of Hamas. So a very concentrated effort on the military side, very concentrated effort on the humanitarian side. And then the third part is, how do we actually remove Hamas from the Gaza Strip? And that goes to what the IDF is actually doing on the ground in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, and this is a great way of separating Hamas from its grip of the population, because we see that it's working. The population in the Gaza Strip are sick of Hamas selling them the food at high prices. And just in recent weeks, since this humanitarian aid distribution began, the prices of flour and basic necessities in the Gaza Strip dropped significantly. And also, we have reports that Gazan Palestinians looted Hamas storehouses filled with humanitarian aid that was meant for them, but Hamas stole it. So they had like armed guards at the entrance of these warehouses, and the Palestinian people said, we had enough. We are willing to risk our lives in order to get the food that Hamas is preventing from us.
Yeah, their food.
Their food.
Yeah, it's their food.
Yeah. Not Hamas.
Paid for by other countries and not by Hamas.
Most likely paid for by you, many of you, the viewers. Okay.
I hope our viewers are not donating to Hamas.
No, to the aid organization, United Nations and other organizations.
Paid for by the U.S. government to a certain degree, but mostly by other international entities and by the State of Israel to a certain degree. Paying for food to go in, knowing full well that a lot of it would be looted by Hamas. Anyway, so let's talk about the military side of things. So we established there's a huge effort on the aid side, how to make sure food gets to people. Then on the military side, the IDF is doing something slightly different. What's happened in the past, it's sort of hard to explain without showing this on a map. The IDF would come in, it'd say inhabitants of, name a neighborhood, Darj el-Tufah, whatever, name a neighborhood. All you guys evacuate the area, we're going in to clear out the Hamas. What would happen is Hamas would stash their weapons, they'd embed within the civilian population, leave the area, some would stay behind, IDF would go in, would fight fight whatever's left of the Hamas, they'd break down some of the booby-trapped houses, and leave, and then the population will come back alongside with Hamas. Yeah. That happened multiple times. This time the IDF is saying, look, we have a different problem. Hamas, even in the ceasefire season of the last year and a half, has gone in, and every time we leave, they plant IEDs everywhere. And they plant bombs within the houses and the sides of the roads and within everything you can imagine, broken down cars, etc. And it's become such a saturated war zone that it makes it very hard for the IDF to operate. And the IDF has started systematically blowing up and bulldozing the houses that are used as weapon storehouses. What that actually looks like, though, is a very, very violent image in the eyes of people who don't understand.
A huge explosion.
Yeah, where the IDF has to go in systematically blowing up houses and neighborhoods, trying to clear the way so in the future, the civilians can come back. And
by the way, the IDF created this new weapon using old APCs. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Old APCs, filling them up with explosives, connecting robotic gear to the shifts of this machine, and then it can be controlled from within Israel, and then sending them to these Hamas strongholds, to these dangerous neighborhoods, and then creating an super huge explosion without risking our soldiers.
Yeah.
So this is something that the IDF has developed recently, just in this war. And I think that the fact that Hamas is like pushing back so hard with its lies and with the international media shows that they are losing on the ground because they try to project strength. And I don't know what will be the next coming days looking like, because let's say we kill this new leader of Hamas, okay? The IDF terminates
I need to look up his name. They changed so fast.
Al-Zadin El-Shihab, Abu Shihab.
Al-Zadin El-Haddad.
Yes. So he's the new leader, and apparently he's also like a very, very radical guy. He has the...
I find that deeply surprising.
Yeah, right?
Who could have seen that coming?
he does not want an agreement to be reached between Israel and Hamas, and he holds a veto power because he's controlling what happens within the Gaza Strip. So this is the situation. This is who we're dealing with. Guys, I don't know what you think about the situation, but what would you do? Would you continue a military action? Would you push the negotiations realm? let me know in the comments. It's very complicated, this situation. So I would like to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, it's highly, highly complicated. We were talking about this over lunch.
You had lunch?
I had lunch,
I
yeah.
didn't have lunch.
Yeah, you should have come on time. You would have had lunch.
I'm starving.
It was amazing. Should I go on in further detail? One of the best sandwiches I've had in a long time, Yair.
Okay.
Anyway.
Enough is enough.
We're sitting with the team and just talking about like, well, what does winning against Hamas look like? And we can argue this, I think, indefinitely, but there really is no winning against Hamas in the way people imagine beating a country. There isn't going to be a day, I don't want to sound too depressing and negative here, where Hamas comes out with a white flag and says, we surrender, we've lost. That's not in the nature of their organization. Mm-hmm. What the IDF is trying to do, and Israel, together with the aid of the U.S., is trying to say, look, we're not able to get to the day after. We're not able to get to the point where there's a proper negotiation that ends with the surrender of Hamas, a change of governance, and an exchange of hostages, or hostages and terrorists, I should say, Israeli hostages, Hamas terrorists. That day doesn't seem to be in the horizon. No. What we have now is the ability to make sure that aid gets to the people of Gaza and to stop Hamas from attacking Israel, which they have been, even during this last, 30-day season.
What? Just in the last 3 days, Israel was attacked from Syria by Hamas affiliates.
Yes.
From Syria. So they just keep popping out from all over this region.
Yeah. So, and you asked this question of like, well, who controls Hamas? They have another leader, because Muhammad Sinwar was killed, and many others, heads of brigades, heads of battalions, many of them were killed. They keep coming up through the ranks because, again, not a majority, a substantial percentage of the population there is indoctrinated, is radicalized by Hamas. They controlled up to...
I would say more than 90%, Mati. If you go to the health system or the education system or the working ministry or system in the Gaza Strip, you're indoctrinated by Hamas.
It's very
impossible not to be.
Yeah. So, look, a lot of the population keeps feeding the Hamas mechanism. We keep eliminating the leadership of it. And right now...
More leaders keep coming up.
Yeah, and I think at one point or another, you sort of have to look at what's on the table and decide what the next step is. And we've seen, and I need to say this because it's easy with how fast things have been moving in this region, you need to remind people of how much effort has gone into reaching an agreement with Hamas. Israel, I don't know how many times already. 4 times we've had ceasefire agreements with the Hamas in the last 18 months, maybe more. It's hard to count.
We had many times throughout the last 20 years, many ceasefires.
Let's say many times we've tried to reach an agreement with Hamas. This last season, starting with October 7th, 2023, every ceasefire has been, we'll stop fighting you and we'll leave the Gaza Strip if you give us back our hostages. Hamas consistently, you'll notice there's a pattern here because Iran does the same thing. They say yes, yes, and then they actually say no.
Yes, but we had this little section amendment to this agreement.
You must all
leave
die.
Israel, die, and we will have a ceasefire. No problem.
Yeah. If you could just add that into the draft.
Yeah.
It's like,
we agree completely.
Yeah. It's terribly depressing, but it's very true. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we've eliminated much of their leadership. They're still holding on. The rumor on the street is they're losing power. Mm-hmm. Are they losing power to the point of not being relevant? No. Are they losing power to allow the population not to be threatened by them and be able to receive aid directly? I'm also not sure about that.
Yeah.
And I'll get to the point we opened with the media bias of what's actually happening there. There are very substantiated reports that say that the Hamas is opening fire on people trying to receive aid. They've done this in the past, more than once, and they seem to be doing it again because they're looking at any aid that comes in that isn't filtered through their hands and sold by them as an existential threat on Hamas itself. And they act accordingly, violently, ruthlessly against their own people. So we have a problem there of having this ruthless organization that refuses to reach a ceasefire and at the same time is torturing its own people. And we're trying to interject as Israel, as an international community, and bring a better shift to that situation altogether.
And for some reason, we're getting, backlashed by the United Nations, by other international
No, it's much
bodies.
worse.
It's like they don't want...
I wish it was backlash. They're actively preventing aid from going to the people.
Now, at this moment, there are aid trucks in the Israeli side of the border that the United Nations is not allowing.
They went through a couple hours ago.
Just a couple hours.
I got a text message from Kogat, Matak, the guys that are responsible for that, and they said, FYI, Israel decided, even though they're preventing us from giving aid, Israel passed through multiple times now already, trucks that were from the UN actively. We were the ones who passed them into the Gaza Strip.
And these trucks go to Hamas.
Yes.
Not through the new safe zones.
So listen to how
humanitarian aid.
How twisted the language is. They say that the fact that Israel is trying to control the distribution of humanitarian aid is an act of a war crime. And the reason for that is because it's, I forget what the exact word they used was, it's not a fair use of power in the Gaza Strip or something bizarre like that. And therefore, aid organizations shouldn't assist Israel in distributing goods in the Gaza Strip. And I had to.
So they should assist Hamas, a known terrorist organization,
or better than they get no aid. Better that they get no aid than allow Israel to be the one to distribute the aids. Now the aid. Sorry.
Why this is like.
But Israel isn't the one distributing the aid. It's an international organization, and behind the scenes, and this is what I think is missed by the media. Behind the scenes, I'm trying to think what the English term for this would be. Machol shedim.
A ghost dance?
No, but it's like it's all hell broke loose behind the scenes of every anti-Israeli outlet and every anti-Israeli country in the world fighting tooth and nail to prevent Israel from being the good guy in the story. And they're willing, and listen to this, they're willing to starve the Gazans to prevent Israel from being able to pass aid on to them. That's how extreme it is. They're willing to lie actively and say, Israel is preventing aid from getting to the people of Gaza, when you know full well that that's a lie, and you're the one preventing aid from going to the people of Gaza.
No, it's sad. It's sad. And now we see this flotilla with, what's her name?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta? Yeah, she's
Thunberg.
What is she? She's like
she's a
climate
activist. Yeah.
I don't think that the climate is so good in the Gaza Strip when it was under Hamas control for 20 years.
She's traveling on a polluting ship. She should find a better way to travel there.
Well, I don't know. It seems like that everything is twisted in this world. That you have like a climate activist that is supporting a terrorist group against the only democratic country in the Middle East to help terrorists that holds Israeli hostages.
Yeah, let's talk about the hostages.
Okay.
So Steve Witkoff, the U.S. emissary to everything and everyone.
Yeah, everything Middle East.
Yeah, well, not just Middle East. It was also Ukraine.
Also
Ukraine back in the day. So Witkoff comes out with another proposition. It's been a week and a half now. Anyways, there have been several iterations of this. And he says, Israel, hey, this is the new version of the agreement. Israel says, whatever it is, we're saying yes as long as we get the hostages back. Hamas says, and I need to say this out loud because it's so absurd, we'll do it, but Israel needs to commit to not attack Gaza for 7 years. 7 years. And I ask any viewer at home, if you're watching this, you're just at the tail end of an 18-month war against someone who invaded your country and kidnapped hundreds of your people and murdered them, many of them, and they say, look, we'll give them back, but commit to whatever we do, not once again invade the Gaza Strip for 7 years. Who in their right mind would do that? So Hamas says Israel's not serious. Israel says, Hamas, you got to be kidding.
But the sad part is what the news outlets are taking out of these statements is like Hamas is willing for a ceasefire as long as Israel does not invade for 7 years.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like we are the aggressor here.
Yeah.
We were attacked. We just want to get our hostages back and want to live in peace. Mati, every day, how many times this week we ran to the bomb shelters because of Houthi attacks?
I've lost count.
It's crazy.
It's been a lot.
I know you don't wake up from them anymore.
No, I was
from the alarms.
I have to. It's to the point now where I think my kids have started questioning whether or not they need to get out of bed to go to the bomb shelter. I said, why? It happens so often at this point. It's ridiculous.
I know. I don't know. It's very annoying. But Mati, some of these missiles, because we have such a good anti-rocket defense system, these missiles are intercepted outside
in the atmosphere,
Israeli, I don't know,
aerospace
or stuff like that. But still, just this week, a fragment of this missile landed in our area.
Fragment.
Yeah, a fragment of this missile landed in our area. So this is also
landed down the road from both of our houses.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. So this is also causing injuries in Israel. Yeah. And when something like this happens and somebody gets hurt, if it's from a terrorist attack or from a missile or just, somebody giving birth or falling from a bicycle, we have our first responders in Israel that are called Magen David Adom, and they're also our partners in TBN Israel for a very long time, and we are very proud of the work that they're doing. They are saving lives, actually. They have a response call or time of about 2 minutes to any incident that happens. 2 minutes, and you have an ambulance and ambu motorcycle, an ambu bicycle, whatever. They have everything.
Everything with wheels.
Everything with wheels that can save lives. And, just recently, they received additional bulletproof ambulances from Christians around the world.
That was exciting.
Yeah.
It's
right here. Not
far. Beautiful to see that.
Yeah.
I want to tell a story. We weren't planning on saying this. One, let's just finish the pitch and say, if anyone wants to support people that are on the first line of aid on October 7th, on October 8th, and every day since then and before then, make a donation to MADA, which is Save Lives. Save Life. Israel.com. Yeah,
SaveLifeIsrael.com.
Thank you, Yair. And I want to tell a story. I don't know if I told you this. A couple weeks back, I was riding my my motorcycle on the highway on the way home.
Texting on the way.
I wasn't texting.
Okay,
no.
good.
I was focused, 100% focused, and a guy in front of me crashes a scooter.
Seriously?
Did I tell you about the story?
Didn't.
A guy in front of me, he was a food delivery guy, crashes his scooter. The food scatters all over the highway. It was like a dramatic scene. All the traffic stopped. I get off my motorcycle, park on the side, lift the guy. He's all in shock because he's just smeared on the highway. Pick him up. He's all confused. Anyway, we talk. I don't think a minute went by, and a guy with a MADA backpack runs up.
No.
Really?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Without calling them or anything?
They were right behind us on the road. And I think that's the miracle or the efficacy of these organizations is they're so strongly embedded into a volunteer base in Israel. One, their effect, as far as bang per buck goes, is very substantial. Two, they're so effective because everywhere you go in this country, there's a volunteer with a backpack or with a scooter with with a case or with what are those packs called?
Defibrillator?
Defibrillators. Yeah. Thank you. They're on every street corner in this country. It's highly effective when you look at it from the ecosystem perspective.
It's funny, yeah. You can have a CEO and he's volunteering for Magen David Adom as a paramedic. You can have an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, and he's also volunteering for Magen David Adom as a paramedic. Yeah. So it's in every layer of society, you have this volunteer method. And Magen David Adom is based only on volunteers. They have more than 30,000 volunteers in Israel, and they need your help to buy more ambulances, to train these guys. So if you want to help them, go to SaveLifeIsrael.com. Okay, so Mati, what's the future for Gaza? I think we've been talking a lot about what's happening now. We've been upset about
Let's talk about
Greta.
Let's talk about the hostages.
Yeah.
So we still have 58 hostages that remain in the Gaza Strip. Let's say 20-ish of them are supposed to be supposedly alive. We don't know the exact number. We've been trying, Israel, together with the U.S., together with any country who's willing and able to help, trying to negotiate a deal with Hamas for months now. I'm going to say easily 6 months nonstop.
Yeah.
With the Egyptians, with the Qataris, with the Saudis, with anyone who's willing to be sort of the go-between between Israel and the Hamas. It always blows up, not figuratively, not literally speaking, because Hamas refuses to actually enter the negotiation. And we're at this impasse where all we want as Israel is we want Hamas to stop being a terrorist organization that tries to kill us. We want our hostages back. And they say, well, what we want in return is to fight you forever. And it's really hard to find a middle ground
between all of you die or we just keep fighting.
Yeah.
That's what they have.
And it's been a problem. And in Israeli society, and I need to say this, we're all gung-ho, yes, Israel, yes, Israel. It's a terrible pain point. It's hard to explain this to an outside audience. It's been almost 2 years, a year and I don't know what it is now, 8 months, 7 months since the war started.
609 days.
Yeah, a very long time since this war started. We filmed, what was it? We were in Gaza 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
let's say 2 weeks ago, we were in the Gaza Strip, and I filmed with, this is airing, I think, in a couple of days, with a hostage that was released after 505 days in captivity. And I didn't realize this personally, how sensitive the topic was. And he just started talking, and I started crying. And you realize how.
And Mati doesn't cry like ever.
It depends on the year. I cry more. Anyway, but just the pain of everything that Israel has experienced, and so many people that have been kidnapped. It's hard to explain this. We are a tribal society. We're a family society, and just to give an example, when Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, and several of the 5 others, was it 4 others, 5 others? 5 others.
6 others. I think it was
6 total or 7 total?
6, something like that.
When they were murdered by Hamas in the tunnel a day before they were freed, everyone in Israeli society across, I mean, we all shed a tear together, and we feel the pain. Even people say it's only 58. It's not only 58. It's the mothers, the fathers, the children of Israeli society, of our family members that are held in the pit of hell by Hamas, and we know what they go through over there. And the stories are horrific. They're heartbreaking when they come out. Our society, our people, our story can't move on without freeing those hostages. And to anyone around the world who's saying, well, just reach an agreement, it's like, no. I'd say this. I am willing to personally continue fighting. And I think most Israelis would say the same thing until the very last hostage is brought back.
Yeah, you cannot go on with life without bringing them back. Yeah. That's why we went into Gaza. That's what we want to do, and this is what we have to do for the IDF soldiers that lost their lives so far in this war,
yes,
which is close to 500 IDF soldiers, and also because of all those that are still there and depend on us, and for the future of our kids. I mean, just to tell my daughters or son that if something happens to you, Israel has your back.
Yeah, you know? We have we're bound by duty and bound by honor as a society to bring these people back. And anyone who says, well, the war should end, say, yes, it should. It could end tomorrow if Hamas gave back the hostages. It could end in 2 hours if they brought back every last hostage, dead and alive. Yeah. And it needs to be very, very clear. The day that happens, that's the end of the war. Hamas can go back to, or the Gazans can go back to doing their thing, focus on rebuilding. Israel will move on with their life, but we can't do that without the hostages. And I think that leads us to sort of the final point, which is where do we go from here? It's been more than a year and a half of fighting. It's been an incredibly painful for both sides situation. We're fighting against a vile and vicious enemy who seems to be happy to see every last Gazan suffer and on every possible level, spiritually, physically, politically, suffer indefinitely just to prolong the suffering of the Israeli people. And we continue seeing this fight. Where are we going from here?
Well, I think that the only option is really to take control of the Gaza Strip and remove Hamas from power, and then find an international body that will be in charge of the Palestinian people for at least 20, 25, a full generation, that they'll grow up without, being brainwashed to hate Israel. It's a very hard situation. The other option is what Trump suggested, and actually find a better place for the Palestinian people. Both options seem like it's impossible, but also pretending to succeed in coexisting and living here when one side wants to kill you is also not a reality. And we've tried that for many, many years since the State of Israel was established, basically. So we need to try to do some things differently than what we did in the past, and to be strong and persistent in achieving our goals. But we also need to have a partner or somebody on the other side or in the world that will help us, because we cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
Israel cannot fix this situation, the Palestinian issue, on its own. It's impossible.
Yeah, I'm of agreement. We've been talking about this a lot lately. The only place I come to after talking through all these things, and you can be blue in the face, discussing what needs to be done and what doesn't, is just the need to pray for our leaders.
For sure. They have a hard job.
And it's, again, this is over lunch that you missed with our team.
Remind me again.
Where these kind of things, it's not the question of, what is today's decision? What fork in the road do you take? It's the big picture decisions that need to be made by leadership at a prime minister and a minister of defense, and sort of the people that have these conversations in back rooms. You need to be making them a year or 2 or 5 in advance, knowing what's coming down the road and adjusting accordingly. And those are the kind of things that only bring solution. Because the question is, how do you today, with the parameters we have at hand, how do you end Hamas? The answer is you don't. And because the true answer is a year ago, and a year from now, I guess, if you didn't do it a year ago, you should be talking to everyone around the world and saying, Saudi, we identify your agenda. And we say that for you to rise to the place you're expecting in the Middle East, we need you to become our partner in rebuilding the Gaza Strip. Abu Mazen, you've identified your successor, it's the head of the Palestinian Authority. Let's talk about what happens in 12 months or in 18 months and build you up and chip away at the animosity and the mistrust that exists to build you as an organization that can come in and run aid.
El Julani.
Yeah.
Let's partner together.
Now you're thinking big now.
That's big if you want to think. Lebanon,
But I mean, exactly to your point, it's thinking about like these really big picture moving pieces and projecting into the future of like what is the right thing to do that's really going to solve this problem. Because the solution, it isn't negotiating with Hamas. The solution is negotiating with the replacement of Hamas.
We need an alternative to Hamas terrorists running the Gaza Strip. I don't think it's such a, crazy demand. Let's have a government that doesn't want to kill all its neighbors and its own civilians running the Gaza Strip instead of a terrorist group. I think we can do better than that as a society, and the Gazan Palestinians deserve better than Hamas. Well,
is there anyone that can do this though? I think we have about like 5 more minutes to talk about this, and I need to say this to be clear. The people of Gaza deserve better. I think we often end on this thought.
They do.
They deserve, as the people of Iran do, as the Syrians do, as the Lebanese do. They deserve better than this.
Also the Houthis, they deserve better than flip-flops.
Yeah.
Mati.
Are you making a joke?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
You don't have to laugh, Mati. It's okay. I'm sure maybe one viewer laughed at my joke.
I'm laughing internally. Anyway, so to your point, the people of Gaza deserve better than Hamas, but Hamas doesn't leave overnight. They're not the kind of organization that loses an election and says, thank you for the run, guys. It's been good.
Oh, they actually throw the opponents from the rooftops.
Yeah, well, they shoot them in the kneecaps and
then throw them. Yeah.
And then they throw them. So they're not the kind of peaceful organization that moves on quietly into the night. You need forcefully to bring in a replacement to them. You need to build up something long term. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to, again, it's move all the pieces on the board at the same time. Make sure aid is coming in. Mm-hmm. Recruit, the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Qataris and the Saudis and the Americans, all of them, to help bring in aid into the Gaza Strip, to rebuild the Gaza Strip, to eliminate Hamas financially, eliminate them politically, eliminate them physically, biologically,
ideologically,
on every level.
Exactly.
And all of these things are long-term processes. And then there's also the media side of thing, which is, I think, where I would take this, which is, again, I usually don't get very emotional about what happens in the news. The last 4 or 5 days, last week, let's say, has been absolutely horrific. I mean, everywhere you look, it's like we're having these alternative reality conversations. Iran lying to the U.S. and everyone clearly sees it's happening. And said, let's choose to believe that maybe they'll change their heart this time. Hamas, consistently repeating the same pattern time and time again.
And the international media making these lies into headlines.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's like, I don't know. It's super annoying to see it happening. And I think this is where we need to step up. And by we, it's like all of us, guys. We need to share the truth. We need to speak up when we hear a conversation that is filled with lies and misinformation. This is our job. And after we do that, we need to pray. We need to pray for the situation. We need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We are here on this earth for a reason. God didn't just put us here to do nothing when we have so much lies and deceit goes around us. Okay? Yep. So this is a little bit of a call to action to you. I mean, take action. Share the truth. You can also share our content, but there are also other, good YouTubers and good media reporters around there. Go pray, find them, and share the truth and know what's happening in this region and pray for the situation.
Amen to that. And I'd say one last thing is because of what we've seen in the media, especially in the last weeks, is people need to be, one, based and founded in the truth when they shape their worldview, mm-hmm. and two, slow to change their opinions about things. And I'll give an example. If you know that the Israeli army very much tries to protect civilians in the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria, and has done so time and time and time again for decades. And you hear suddenly news on every outlet in the world says, hey guys, newsflash, the IDF has been arbitrarily shooting civilians in the Gaza Strip. And it's on BBC, and it's on CNN, and it's on the Washington Post, and countless other outlets. Do I bother say Al Jazeera? They don't even try. And so
not even close.
Yeah. So and you see suddenly this headline that's trending. Take a minute, take a breath, and say, well, let's see what really the outcome of this outline, this news cycle is, because oftentimes there'll be a correction that comes afterwards, and especially if there's an agenda tied into this thing. Here's the problem when you're fighting media wars and truth and deception wars, is when you're the defending side, you first investigate before you answer. What we do know is the IDF always tries to uphold the lives of civilians, always investigates, always makes sure it's true, but mistakes do happen. So the IDF doesn't automatically come out and say,
we didn't do anything.
We didn't do anything.
They check.
They check.
Ask questions.
They thoroughly check. And we've experienced this on the media side and internally in the army. They thoroughly check things, even if it's 2 years after something's happened. Yeah. Always check, always do it thoroughly, always take it very, very seriously, always take our profession as people that are supposed to protect and not to harm very, very seriously. And take a breath and wait a minute before you start judging and saying, well, everything I thought about Israel or whatever is wrong. Yeah, exactly. Hamas lie. They lie consistently. Trust in that. Israel tries to tell the truth, and it tries to do so consistently. And when something's wrong, we admit it publicly again and again and again. And we've done so many times before. And I think also be founded in the Bible is something that people need to be aware of. Exactly. And I'm happy a lot of our viewers are. It's a good place to start to read the news. Yeah, definitely. And Mati, despite all these attacks and all this war situation, I think that the people of Israel are resilient. I have an example personally just from the Shavuot holiday that we had this week. I was preparing pizzas. We had like a lot of dairy stuff with the family. And then we had a sirens alarm, and we stopped, went to the bomb shelter, and then went back to life. And life went on. We had the pizza. We had a great evening. These evil terrorist groups will not stop us from having a good time, from celebrating the biblical holidays that we do here in Israel. Yes. And we will come out of the situation stronger and better because God is teaching us something. That he's always faithful to the people of Israel, and he's always faithful to each and every one of you. Amen to that. Okay? Well, thanks, Mati. Thank you, Yair. It was fun. I'm going to go eat the lunch that you didn't save me. Thank you, guys, for joining us. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Share, like, subscribe, and make sure to watch us again next time on TBN Israel, the podcast. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel.